Is this thing working? Oh, it's on. Hey there, I'm Kit, and welcome to The Unnamed Review Show, where I review games. And in the last episode, we might have had a bit of an issue running out of budget, but we're back now, and I'm in a great place where I can't run out of budget again. Space! But before I get into any of that space stuff, let me tell you about what game we're reviewing this month. We're reviewing Dragon's Dogma, and this video is mainly to serve as a quick guide to get people into the original right before they buy the sequel, since I know most people aren't going to play the original anyways. But even though that might be the case for some people, I still want to talk about this game because it's one of my favorite games that Capcom released around that time, and it's one of my favorite RPGs of the 2010s. Which being said, it's kind of weird, because Capcom in the 2010s was Capcom in the 2010s. But this game was a diamond in the rough, a needle in the haystack, another metaphor I can't think of. But despite all that good stuff about it, the game still has its flaws and quirks. Not many of them, but it still has a few in there. But before we can even get into the aspects and flaws of the game, we should talk about the two most important things: the story and the gameplay. I'm going to start with the story, because it's something I can easily explain, but I also don't want to give out all the details because I think people should go back and play this game. So the game's story starts off with you playing in the tutorial, where you play as not you. It's a guy who's not you. And then after you beat the tutorial with him, you get to play as your own custom character that you made that's super important. And this super important person gets their village immediately attacked by a dragon. I like to call this dragon Travis Scott because me and my friends thought it'd be funny to call him that. Travis Scott does the most disrespectful thing known to man, and he backhands you and eats your heart. And that is your character's main central motivation, going back to get your heart. And they tell you you're a special person called the Arisen, where you and there's other people like you out there who have had their hearts eaten by the dragon. And it's now your duty to go out and kill the dragon. And so that's how the game starts. Of course, it gets more complex later on, but I'm not going to spoil you on all those details. Instead, now I'm going to be talking about how the game ends. If you don't want to get spoiled, click to the timestamp in the video right now. Alright, you're good now? Let's get into the ending. So after getting through a lot of the game and getting to the dragon, you fight Travis Scott and you murder him outright because he's kind of an easy fight. After murdering outright Travis Scott, he tells you something.
Yeah. Gone on you with the pick and roll. Younger Flame, he in sicko mode.
And in the main hub area of the castle and stuff, a big hole opens up and the most tedious part of the game starts. You now have to get 20 wake stones to go fight the final boss. And who's the final boss? The guy from the tutorial. And he basically tricks you into becoming God because he doesn't want to be God anymore. And you use the sword to kill him and it's all cool and stuff. But then you realize you don't have enough responsibility to be God in the first place. So you kill yourself and then your pawn becomes you. And that's kind of where the game ends. It's really weird ending, but I really liked it from when I played of it. A lesser aspect of the game's story is the fact that you can have a love interest. These love interest characters can be gotten through mainly side quests, except for one of them, which is the default one, being some night lady you meet during the Hydra quest. There are 4 others you can get, but I'd recommend looking up their quest lines, because some of them can be a little confusing at times, and you can easily miss them, and once you miss them, you can't ever do them again. But that is all the aspects of the story we need to cover today. So now, let's get into the best part of the game, the gameplay. So the gameplay of Dragon's Dogma is the same as your standard action RPG. You get your light attack, you get your heavy attack, but they decide to innovate on the formula a good bit. And how did they do this? Well, it's simple. They added aspects of one of the best PS2 games to their action RPG, and that game being Shadow of the Colossus. They added the climbing system from Shadow of the Colossus into an action RPG. And this makes boss fights so dynamic with certain creatures because you can climb on their backs and they'll fly around and try to wiggle you off. And despite this being one of the coolest features in the game, there is still one aspect of it that kinda sucks, being it's only beneficial for like a few classes. And speaking of classes, that is one of the aspects of the game that makes it super unique. And the main 3 classes you'll get in the beginning of the game are Mage, Fighter, and Strider. And these classes, in their own respect, are pretty powerful on their own, but you'll also eventually get the advanced classes. And those classes, in their own respects, are super powerful, and those are Warrior, Ranger, and Sorcerer. And then after unlocking those classes, you can get 3 other classes being the hybrid classes, and they are Mystic Archer, Mystic Knight, and Assassin. And all these classes are super overpowered and almost game breaking, but they're really fun to use, especially Mystic Archer. There's one more aspect of this game I almost forgot to mention, being the pawns. The pawns in the game are basically player characters like you that are meant to support you and they're CPU controlled. The only thing about them is most people expect them to kind of suck. And on a surface level, they kind of do. But once you understand how they work and stuff, you can make them just as powerful, if not better than you in a lot of aspects. Throughout the game, you can get these scrolls to teach them how to fight better. And once you teach them how to fight better, they become the most useful asset in your party. And overall, these gameplay aspects like the pawns and the different classes is what makes Dragon's Dogma so good and so unique compared to its competitors out there at the time. Despite the game being one of my favorite Capcom games of all time, there is still one thing in this game, one thing that is absolutely infuriating to deal with, and that's the final dungeon. You see, the final dungeon has you collect 20 of a rare item, and can best be described as one of the most painful experiences you'll ever go through in the game. Instead of telling you about it, I stirred up something even better to show you how terrible it is. Despite that graphic display, I can still say all these flaws still make up one of my favorite Capcom games of all time, that I'll always fondly remember, and I'll probably talk about again at some point. And it's totally not like I forgot any looming threat of a DLC area or anything. Oh wait,